Hey parents, this is Mr. Bergmann, and I'm so excited to be your son or daughter's science teacher this year, 24-25 school year. I want to just introduce myself and, tell you a little bit about myself. This is my 39th year teaching. I'm old, see the white hair. I started teaching in 1986. I did take a hiatus. I'll talk more about that real briefly, but just quick introduction to some things I think that might help you understand more about how I play this game. Your students in a mastery-based classroom, so I've helped develop mastery learning around the world. And I guess I'd ask a question here is, teachers talk about this fancy big word called pedagogy. It's how we teach. And I think if we were to look at the way most schools are designed, so what are schools designed for? If you had looked at a classroom 100 years ago, you would see a picture like this. And if you look at 2019 or even today, they tend to look more like that. And I don't know, it's interesting. If you had Googled what, say, a classroom looked like in USA, Japan, Nigeria, I've done this. This is what you'd find. This is what a classroom looks like in the US, in Taiwan, in Japan, in Uganda. You're seeing the pattern here: Afghanistan, Tibet, Egypt, the Middle East, China, India, the Himalayan mountains, Vietnam, Peru, the higher education in rich countries, in developing countries, in the military, and in prison. And so I want you to understand that when I think about education, is I think it needs to be done differently. And that allows me to kind of deal with this question: is what makes good teaching good? And you see how this connects in a minute. I think what makes good teaching good, actually this is not just me talking, this is research. There are some like big name doctor people who've done research into what makes learning good. And number one, it has to be active. So students need to be not in a passive model, what you saw in those images. And I think it must be firmly founded in the concept of relationships. And we know that from our Christian worldview, is that the gospel is a story of God bringing us back to relationship. We broke relationship in the garden, and then he brings us back, and that is his heart for us and for your students, for you, for me, etc. So this class is a mastery-based class with a flipped twist. So let me just in minutes tell you about the idea of flipped learning. So the idea of flipped learning is, if you are in a traditional classroom, what you would do is you would spend the bulk of your classroom, if you're the teacher, and you were a student many years ago, I'm sure, is that your teacher stood up in front and yacked at you and gave you kind of the information. And then you went home and you did the hard stuff. But in a flipped class, what happens is you flip this. This is something called Bloom's taxonomy. It's a way that educators look at the thinking process. Hopefully you see that the higher level cognitive tasks are at the top and the lower level at the bottom. So in a flipped classroom, you spend less class time on the remembering and understanding, and you spend the bulk of your class time on the hard stuff. And actually, I think what really should happen in a K-12 or high school level classroom like we've got here is I'm going to spend the bulk of our class time here in the middle of this mental framework called Bloom's taxonomy. I'm going to spend the middle. That's where we're going to spend most of our time in our class. But it's a mastery classroom. But I developed this idea, so some of you may or may not know, but I've written a number of books. It's actually 12. My first book was this book here in 2012, and then just this last summer, or 2 summers ago, I guess it was, the second edition. This book has been translated into 13 languages and sold in the neighborhood of about 500,000 copies. And then I've written many other books, and then my latest book is this book up here, the Mastery Learning Handbook. And really, this is the basis for how the class operates. And so if you're in this class, and if you really want to learn the ins and outs, hey, you could get this book. And in this whole book, I have this scheme, for lack of a better term, that I call the mastery learning cycle. So this is the key of the whole thing. And so the idea of mastery, because they're flipped, so the students are going to get their primary information dump through these videos that I've made, like the video you're watching right now. I've made 80 of these or something like that for your students. And not that important. All of this stuff is sort of teachery based. I'm going to start with what I call clear objectives. They've got to know what they have to learn. Then they have to, I have something called a rubric. But anyways, long story short, is the key thing you want to know is they get to the assessment stage. When they get to the assessment stage, so if they fail the test, then they can get some remediation and then take it over. See, I believe our educational system is saying something interesting. I think it says, to a large extent, it says, if you learn fast, you're smart. If you learn slow, you're dumb. I don't think that's a true statement. Don't think it at all. But that is what our educational system says. So the big gist is that in a mastery classroom, the students are going to work at a flexible pace. Now, I'm not going to say they work at their own pace, because some students, if you don't give them a pace, won't have a pace. And You know, if your son or your daughter kind of fits that category already, I bet by now, by this level of high school. So I will give them a pace that they have to maintain. And the kind of the nuts and bolts of it is that when they get to the end of a chapter, unit, or whatever, they're going to take a test. And if they don't pass the test, they have to stay there till they learn it. And it works. There's research that backs this. And I just want to say that's kind of the big idea of mastery learning that I'm looking forward to working with your students. This is my 6th year here at HC, and we have seen great results with our students here. So welcome. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Another thing you're going to do is every week-ish, I'm not always perfect, but approximately every week, I will send you a short little video to just do the parents to explain what's going on in the world of the science class that your son or daughter is in. And that way you can keep in contact. Feel free to reach out to me via email. If you have questions, my email is quite simple. I'm just J. Bergmann. Bergmann, by the way, has 2 N's at houstonchristian.org. And reach out to me. I'm glad to just converse. I'm sure I'll see many of you. Also, I am, if you didn't know this, I guess I have that radio voice. So at the football games, you will hear my booming voice coming through the announcing system. So I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful year here. Those of you who are transfer parents, welcome to HC. This is an amazing place. I had lots of choices of where I could have come to teach, and I picked this over many, many schools I could have had an opportunity to come to. So you guys are in a great, great school, and I'm excited to work with your sons and your daughters.